episode of the Cozy Corner of Cinema, episode number 185, being recorded on Thursday, October 16th, 2025. Cold glass of water right here. It's already about halfway done, so I'll have to kind of steadily drink this as to make sure my throat doesn't get too dry. Anyways, guys, here we are. We're in the middle of October. So much to do this month. Halloween's coming up. There's plenty of films to watch. You're going to be going out there, getting Halloween decorations, carving pumpkins, looking at the leaves. It's a great time of the year for sure. The fall is just such cozy weather. It's that time where it starts getting a little chillier. We start to kind of layer up a little bit before we get into, the winter and things start to get really egregious. But for the time being, we're gonna really just go out there and appreciate the weather and appreciate the sun poking through the trees. It's just so wonderful, man. We're just gonna start to get a lot of good films coming out. I've said before we're already kind of in the throes of. I don't even want to say Oscar season. I guess you could probably say that. There's already been films that have been released that are being talked about for the Academy Awards. Those will be watched when available. And in February or whenever they announce the best pick, they announce the nominations. I always forget when they do it. Is when I will go through and talk about all 10 of them, the good, the not so good. We'll see how the year ranks up. But anyway, so I'm gonna do something a little different. Talk about a big kind of contemporary the studio movie. Something I don't really talk about a lot is I try to talk about maybe films that aren't playing in every theater in America. I don't know. Well, actually, I don't know how much longer it's going to be in theaters. So either way, let's talk about the Tron movies. What a fascinating trilogy of movies. I'd never seen Tron from 1982, directed by Steven Lisberger. It's definitely a cult film. There's very much a cult trilogy. The first Tron, 82, I should also say that Steven Lisberger, I think, also directed. Did he do Hot Pursuit? Yeah, he did with John Cusack. That's a fun movie. It's very much a cult film. Comes out, bombs, it doesn't do well. I don't even think critically it does all that well, from what I can remember, but ends up gaining a big kind of following over time for the visuals being just so unique to its own film. It's sort of like the design of this film is so uniquely Tron. And you can watch videos about how they did all of it. It's just wild to think, sort of making at this point this whole kind of world with a blend of CGI visual effects, and then also a lot of I think black lighting they did. I watched part of a thing that was showing off how they actually did it, and I can't even watching, I can't even fathom how they did it all. But yeah, Tron is a film that I think is probably more talked about for its visuals than it is for its story. Because I think it's safe to say the plot of Tron is not really that memorable. It's not really that talked about in terms of, I'm watching the film and at the end of it all, it's basically just Jeff Bridges' character plays his character Kevin Flynn, who gets his game idea stolen, or has to prove that it's been stolen, and he gets sucked into the virtual game world, and he's got to get out of there. It's a film that is a marvel to look at. I mean, just the first half, the first act, I would say, is pretty solid. You also have David Warner in the film, Cindy Morgan. I believe it's from Caddyshack. Is that her in Caddyshack? Yes, that was. But, I think the first act, maybe the first half, it's enjoyable. Of course, remember the light cycle scenes. Everybody talks about those. And we see the disc game they're playing, and it's all cool. And then after a certain point, I kind of just check out. I'm not. I'll talk about this with Tron Legacy as well, but there's a certain point in both these films where I think momentum kind of wears out for me, and I start to lose interest. And by the end, I'm just not that invested anymore. But it's a film that these '80s kind of video game films I find so fascinating. I love my go-to is always Cloak and Dagger. I think that's probably my favorite out of all of the '80s kind of video game movies of people using these video games to it's like how do I even it's like really when video games were more niche and people people, they had like arcades and stuff, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't it wasn't how it is now, where it's just like such a huge market. But you have these guys who are like, really smart, they're playing these games and they're great at it. You have stuff like Cloak and Dagger. The Last Starfighter, of course, is a big title. War Games, which is one. All good films. But yeah, Tron. I think the imagery, the visual sequences. I think I've kind of propelled the film to make up for its short ends. But it's a big film. It's a big cult film. It's one that Disney, I think, were trying to do something more with. I don't know if the first film was made with the intention to make a franchise out of it. But either way, you have 1982, and then you jump all the way to 2010 with Tron Legacy. And this is the one where, visual effects were so far beyond what they were in 82. And I want to make that an important thing to say in relation to the new film. But in this one, much like the original Tron, this has a visual style all of its own, where it's utilizing a lot of like neon in this. Like, the way the suits look is very, it's the same but different. Obviously, the light cycles look more, I don't want to say, I guess more realistic, as compared to how they looked in the original. They look more like motorcycles, these big kind of motorcycles that you could actually imagine, you could see it in like real life as opposed to what it looks like in the first one. But this one, it's Tron Legacy. Jeff Bridges is back halfway through, but anyway, you got Garrett Hedlund in the film. He plays Kevin's kid. Kevin goes missing. They don't know where he is, and Sam, he's got to find what's going on this, and ends up through some circumstances going into the Tron world, and he's gotta find out what is going on. And let me tell you, I hadn't seen this film since 2010, and I remember in 2010 being being underwhelmed, being kind of my same feeling that I had with the first Tron, which is an incredible looking film. And the first act, I would say in this case maybe the first half, I would say everything up to when actually Jeff Bridges shows up, I think is pretty good. It kind of suffers from some writing issues. I think what a lot of people criticize a lot of Marvel superhero movies, and not even just Marvel movies, I would say superhero movies, is characters just constantly making like quips and jokes, especially if the situation doesn't call for it. Because with this film, you have Garrett Hedlund, you have Sam who goes into this Tron world, and it's sort of like I don't think he quite realizes the heaviness of the situation, because he's going in there and he looks kind of confused. He's like, man, I'm in the Tron world, what's going on? And then he's just cracking jokes. He's immediately like an expert at all these games. The disc game, which is wild, and the light cycles. He's somehow an expert at all this. That's fine, it's a movie, I don't care. There's some bizarre de-aging in this that I remember even in 2010 didn't look very good then. And I'm not trying to dog on any animation or visual effects departments. I understand it's incredibly difficult to do, and I know that the de-aging in this has been well talked about. But I remember even in 2010 it looking off, and in 2025 it really stands out. It doesn't look too bad at times, but I think when they have the de-aging and the character is talking, is when it looks kind of like a video game, which I guess if that's the intent they're going for, that's fine, but I don't think that is. I think they're just trying to actually make it seem like a younger Jeff Bridges. But yeah, I kind of have the same problem with this, is that halfway through, I just am not interested in the plot anymore. I think that the pacing is really off after a certain point. As visually incredible as it is, and how much of a leap it is from the original Tron, I think I'm still not quite on board in this world. I would like to learn more about the Tron world itself. Like the best part of the film is the stuff early on when Sam first gets into the game and he's doing all the other games. Like that could have been a whole movie of just having to survive just these games, When we get to some of the other stuff, Olivia Wilde's character in the movie, she's fine in the movie. She's just kind of there to be a catalyst for exposition. I don't know. Jeff Bridges is kind of, it seems like he's playing closer to a Jeff Bridges type character than he was in the original. And I understand you can say, well, he's been in there for a while. The character feels a little different, and I get that you're not going to be the same person you were in 82. It just feels like I'm not quite connecting the dots of it being the same kind of character. But with that said, I think the one thing that everybody talks about this film, the biggest quality that a lot of people say besides the visuals, is the great score by Daft Punk. It sounds just great. I will say, my only issue with that I have with the score is not even from them, but I think the mixing of it is not the best. There's one scene in particular when there's a big fight in this club, and it's almost like the music is too quiet where I couldn't hear. And I watched this. I should also say I watched these on the 4Ks that got released. I picked these up. These are the Region 2 4Ks, but it played just fine. I mean, 4Ks are region free, so it doesn't really matter. I played them on my PS5, so those are fine. And visually, Tron Legacy looked pretty incredible on 4K, and the Atmos sounded really good. I'm not the biggest fan with Atmos having to raise the volume a lot. I understand that with Atmos, it's more about the dynamics than it is about the volume quality, but it is a little frustrating at times to have to adjust that. But the score in this, even early on when Sam is just in the real world, like even the little stuff in the background I thought was really good. So I think this is a case where I like the score more than the film, and it's one that I know didn't. I don't know if it bombed or it underperformed, but this one also has a cult following with it, so it makes sense. So from 2010 to 15 years later, we have the new Tron Ares. Now you could say, well, Dan, you weren't crazy about Tron Legacy. You're not even that crazy about the original Tron. Why are you going to see Tron Ares? Well, I wanted to see a film in a Dolby theater for a while. Dolby Cinema is one that is a viewing format I've been interested in. Dolby is primarily about the sound, more so than the visuals, or more so than the projection, I should say. But I was like, okay, Tron seems like a good film for that. I knew that had this really kind of pumping sort of soundtrack from the trailers and stuff, and visually it looked interesting. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go watch Tron Ares in Dolby. Boy, oh boy, it's kind of, this film is not getting good reviews. It very much underperformed. I think it may have outright bombed. I have no idea. And I even saw a headline that, I don't know how true it is, but saying that the Tron franchise is officially dead. I don't think the film was not well received. I know people aren't crazy about Jared Leto. I know he has some personal stuff attached to him. I'm not really familiar. I don't really care about celebrities' lives. That's not at all interesting to me. I'm here to watch the film. So I know people don't like Jared Leto, but I don't really know a lot about that. I don't really care. I'm here to watch the film, and if people don't want to watch it because of that, that's fine. That's their prerogative. But that wasn't a factor for me to go or not go see a film. But it's crazy to say I actually really enjoyed this film. It's a film that I think because I'm not attached to the franchise, and I don't really care that much about the other two, I was able to kind of invest myself surprisingly more into this, because this is set in the Tron world at times, but this is more about it being pulled into the real world. I like the idea of, well, you have this, and as for the relation to the other film, I couldn't tell you. I mean, in Tron Legacy, they try to set up Cillian Murphy, who he is in the movie for 5 seconds. They try to set that up as if he's going to do something else in a Tron Legacy sequel that never happened. Now we have Tron Ares. I know Gillian Anderson's character and Evan Peters' character is related to that. I don't care. I'm watching the movie on its own. I'm here to watch these damn visuals and this soundtrack and these crazy scenes. But I like the idea that they are trying to almost kind of like 3D print in a way. This crazy kind of laser sort of system that Evan Peters' character is trying to perfect. We have Greta Lee in the film, who is out in, I forgot where she was, but she is also involved with this technology, but she is able to, because the problem that Julian, I should say, his character has is that anything he makes can only last for like 30 minutes before it completely destroys itself, or it gets like turned to ash. Whereas Greta Lee plays his character Eve. She made this big kind of orange tree, and it lasted for hours and hours. And Julian wants to use the Tron laser system for bad, and he's got to get Eve. But at the same time, you got Ares, played by Jared Leto. He's running around. He is trying to. What was he trying to do? He's trying to understand what it's like to be more human. He's trying to learn more about what's going on. Hey, man, the plot, I'm not even going to pretend I followed all of it, because there are times I have absolutely no idea what's going on. And normally that would be a detriment, but boy, oh boy, I had a fun time watching this movie, which is ironic, because no one seems to be liking this movie. But as a fun October kind of like end of the year movie, I had a lot of fun with this. Some of the big things for me right off the bat. I think the soundtrack in this by Nine Inch Nails is pretty incredible. I'm not really familiar with their music, much in the same way I'm not super familiar with Daft Punk. I mean, I may know like a song. I mean, I think I probably know more Daft Punk just through general kind of pop culture than I do Nine Inch Nails. I don't really know what they sound. I mean, I guess I kind of know what they sound like. I don't know. I'm not really. It's not really my kind of music. But the soundtrack on this, I thought was pretty incredible. Um, I'm willing to admit it's my bias, probably from the Dolby cinema, but just hearing these songs, these industrial kind of songs, sort of like pump through the speakers. It's really wild, man. Um, I'm not really the best at describing music, but I guess it's kind of like an industrial sound mixed with kind of like techno. I don't know. All I know is that if you have the opportunity to see it in Dolby, boy oh boy, or see it with a great sound system, I should say. Because on top of the soundtrack, on top of the score, I think the sound mixing is also just really solid in this. There's like one scene, there's a chase scene on a highway where we're just hearing the light cycles. I don't know if that's the name of the game or the actual kind of motorcycles they're riding. I have no idea. That all sounded great. Even the directing in that scene I thought was pretty solid. I like how, when you have Ares and Eve being chased, or Ares is chasing Eve. And you also have Jodie Turner-Smith in the film. I forgot to mention her as well. I think she's a really solid actress. She's been in stuff like After Yang, and she was in Queen and Slim. She's a very good actress. She's in the film as well. As I guess one of the primary antagonists, but the way that scene is directed, I like how we can see, because they're both wearing helmets, Ares and Eve, we can see their eyes kind of looking at each other, sort of, we get a lot from them just by how they look, how they're assessing the situation, and it's a pretty relentless film in terms of the pacing, which may turn some people off, and normally I think if I wasn't enjoying it as much as I did, it might have turned me off as well. For what it was, I mean, I think I'm not going to pretend as if the flaws aren't there. I think the narrative in this is a little all over the place. There's a couple times where I'm sitting there and like I said before, I don't even know what's going on. I'm like, why do they even need to go get to Jeff Bridges? What does he have to do with any of this? It's sort of like when he gets into the movie, I'm sitting there like, why are we here now? And I think they're doing one thing to solve this one problem, but they're actually doing something else. That's fine. If I liked the film less, I think I'd be more critical of the narrative issues and the script issues. But for what it was as a theatrical, big budget studio movie that I try not to read any reviews, try not to look at any reviews, but sometimes through just general word of mouth or people talking, they're saying like, oh, this film's not very good, it's the Jared Leto's not good in this. I thought Jared Leto was fine. He's playing an AI sort of, robotic kind of character, so that's fine. I really like Greta Lee as an actress. I think she's very good in the film. Although there's one scene I thought was kind of peculiar where she goes to a gas station, because she's like a big like kind of tech CEO person, and she goes to a gas station and she's like, she has a magazine where she's on the cover. She's like, asks the gas station attendant, I'll give you $10,000. I'm a big CEO. If I could use your phone right now, I got to make a call. And I'm thinking he probably could have just asked to use the phone. He probably didn't need to offer $10,000. But either way, she's a big hot shot CEO working to make this damn 3D printing technology work, make it sustainable. Instead of using these Tron robots for war and for whatever. Which they kind of did a little bit of in Tron Legacy, but even then, I think the narrative in that is a little off. She wants to use it to help people, to feed people, and that's fine. Listen, I mean, to me, I don't know. Maybe because I don't tend to watch a lot of these kinds of movies. I tend to avoid a lot of movies I think will give me a headache. I had fun with this. I had a lot of fun with this. I think the action sequences are really top-notch. The pacing, I gotta say, is also really good for the most part. I think the third act maybe stumbles a little bit, where there's like a whole other plot element that what I'm talking about when you get to Jeff Bridges. But visually as well, what I was talking about before with the leap from Legacy to Tron is that this one, it's riding off of no pun intended, it's riding off of the visuals of Tron Legacy, but I like that it's a very red color scheme in all this, and I like that they bring that to the real world. And I also like, there's one part of the film I thought was pretty visually, I don't want to get into it, but I thought it was a really interesting kind of idea that they did of updating previous visuals, and I'm going to leave it at that, but I was like, damn, that actually looks pretty solid. I like some of the character stuff with Ares and Eve. I thought they had some good back and forth. I like this. I like when Aries is talking about how he likes, Depeche Mode, and how he's trying, and that's a good way for him to kind of, understand how he feels through like music. And like I'm trying, if I can tell you, I'm like, oh, I like this band. It's like, well, why do you like this band? It's like, I don't know. It's just how it makes me feel. And I like that part of it, and honestly, I mean, I expected more incoherence, as bad as that may sound. I think because the general kind of, um, consensus has not been positive on this. I mean, I don't know. I can only speak for myself, but in terms of films in the theaters this year, this is one of the most fun that I had. Where halfway through, I didn't even want to go to the bathroom. I had to go piss at one point. Excuse my French, but I was like, nah, I really actually want to. I want to sit here and I want to, I'm getting into the film. I really like this. And I think the soundtrack is really, really phenomenal as well. I mean, I've heard people say, oh, it's not as good as Daft Punk's. I'm like, well, it's a different kind of score they're going for. This is more, I would say, maybe industrial. I could be wrong in how I'm describing it, but to me, it's not just trying to do another type of score like that. It's doing its own thing that I think works really, really well. I know Trent Reznor's done the scores for like some David Fincher films. So I think I don't know if this is true or not, but I think someone said this was the first film that actually got credited as Nine Inch Nails for the score. So I don't know how true that is or not. But either way, I mean, listen, man, this is what I'm talking about. When it comes to like reviews and stuff, I mean, I'll listen to my acquaintances sort of say I really try to avoid a lot of it because something like this, man, if it got overwhelmingly positive reviews or overwhelmingly negative reviews, you really, you got to go in and see it for yourself, man. You really can't follow what everyone else is saying. If you agree with the crowd, that's great. But if sort of like, I do think that there is kind of a culture of just universally dogging on a movie. I've talked about that before with like something. I guess before like with Megalopolis or like with Joker Folie à Deux, where it's sort of like everyone is dogging on it. It's like, does everyone really not like this, or is this just the film of the moment that everybody can dog on? And I do think Tron Ares is kind of like that as well. I really don't think this is like a bad movie. I actually really liked it. I had a lot of fun with it, and I was expecting it to be fine. I mean, I was looking, the way I saw it, I was like, okay, this would be a good visual and auditory film to see in a Dolby theater. And the fact that I enjoyed it as much as I did, I'm like, yeah, it's great. It was a perfectly fun, enjoyable movie. Am I gonna watch it again? Probably not. But hey, for a trilogy that I'm not that interested in, with a film that's not getting very good reviews, I thought it was a lot of fun. I really liked the film, and it's like I said, it's not a film I would normally kind of track myself to, but either way, I really liked it, and I would say if you're interested, go for it, man. Make up your own opinion on it. Don't just follow the crowd, man. If you don't like it, you don't like it. That's fine, but have your own opinion and stand by it. And speaking of 2025 movies, I want to talk about one that I ain't hear anyone talking about. And it's funny, my girlfriend, I told her I had watched. She's like, oh, I wanted to see that. I'm like, man, I've not heard anyone talk about this. And it's one of my favorites of the year. It is, I don't know when this came out. I mean, I know 2025, but this was an HBO exclusive. And that documentary is, I was trying to find the actual month it came out, but I don't think I'm able to. Oh yeah, here you go. I don't know if that really matters. I'm just kind of curious, I guess. It was June. Alright, so it was June 27th. Anyways, My Mom Jayne, directed by Mariska, I don't know, I forgot how to say her name. It was Mariska Hargitay? I don't remember. I probably should have looked up how I can say it before I started this. Anyways, I'm fascinated by Jane Mansfield. I think she's somebody who lived a short life, but left a big impact for when she was around, for being myriad talents there. Anyways, Jane Mansfield, very fascinating. Obviously a big fan of The Girl Can't Help It from, I think that was 58 that film came out. 56, I'm sorry. I like that film quite a bit. And it's interesting, I had no idea that Mariska was her daughter. Mariska, probably most famously, people know her from, like, was it Law & Order? SVU, I think is the show she was on. Anyways, I had no idea. So when I saw that she popped up, I was like, whoa, okay. But it's an interesting coming to terms of somebody having a relationship with their mom who never really knew them. I mean, because Jane Mansfield famously and tragically died in a car accident, and I had no idea that her kids were in the car with her. And I mean, that whole part of the film I thought was just so emotional. It's a film that I think when it initially started out, I was curious as to where it was going, because because of the fact that she is interviewing her brothers and sisters who knew more of Jayne Mansfield or Jane, I should say, than she did. She was only 3 when she was in the car accident, so she really doesn't have any memory of her, and sort of this relationship to a parent through everyone else of just Jayne Mansfield, fan clubs and people who were fans of the movies and people who were there's a part where she talks about letters that she got sent out, people who knew her and talking about how she was as a person, this and that, and not in a way where it's salacious, but in a way of just how I knew this person. It's actually one of the interesting parts of the film. They talked to this guy Raymond Straight, who wrote a very incorrect and salacious, sort of exploitive book about Jayne Mansfield. It's interesting that he agreed to be interviewed with this, and she kind of confronts him about why would you do something like this to and so that part I thought was so fascinating. But it was just such an emotional documentary, and just somebody really trying to figure out who their ma was, and sort of being on the outside, being being on the outside of this person who is directly related to you and not having any sort of real background on them. The stuff with the brothers and sisters I thought was great. And they're talking about, they didn't know her for that long either, but they knew him for longer. They have some sort of reference to go off of, and that feeling of being on the outside of in your own family, I thought was so great. I mean, and there's a lot of great archival footage in this, a lot of like talk shows, a lot of like older interviews and stuff, and it's sort of like trying to find out who this person really was that wasn't just wasn't just their tragedy. In the same way where if you watch something about Sharon Tate, it's sort of like for how long did people just not even try to humanize this person, but only define them by this tragedy. And that's why, I mean, like or dislike Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I love that film in part because what Tarantino does in that is not like, this was a real person. This was somebody who was a complex person, and they have been so long defined, much like Jayne Mansfield. They've been defined as a tragic end, where it's sort of like what this film does, and obviously this documentary, and that's a fictional film, but what these films are both trying to do is, in different ways, look at them as a person. This is that is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is a very, very heartfelt look at somebody who ultimately got defined in pop culture because of that. But then in this case, it's sort of like somebody being defined as their tragedy, whereas Mariska is like, no, this was somebody who lived, and this was my mom, and I really want to try the best I can through everyone else to know who she was. It's just such a well done film that I only knew about this because I saw an acquaintance on Letterboxd log it, and I was like, ooh, I wonder if that's like playing at film festivals or something, and it's going to come out. And I look it up, and I'm like, wait, it's been on HBO? I mean, I think this kind of goes back into the conversation I'm talking about before with how films are distributed now. It's sort of like, this was just sitting on HBO for months. I would have watched this back in June, and I didn't hear anyone talk about this. Like, what does that say about contemporary film distribution, where this is kind of like, I'm not somebody, I said before, I'm not browsing on streaming services. I'm not just going to sit there. When I find myself browsing, I'm like, well, I got to stop doing this. I'll be here for hours. It's sort of like, through word of mouth, through, hearing how people talk about films and stuff, it's a shame that this, I mean, I'm sure people are talking about it, but I didn't hear anybody talking about it. And I was like, man, I would have loved to have, I would have been actively looking forward to this. But just a really, really great documentary. This is one of my favorites of the year. And man, check it out. I really think more eyes need to be on this. But with that said, time is coming, or the episode is coming to a close. So thank you guys so much for listening. Fascinating talking about these big budget movies and ending with this emotional kind of documentary. But hey, like, kind of goes what I said too before. Just have your own opinions. There's nothing wrong with looking at other people's kind of critiques or whatever like that. I mean, but just have your opinion and stand by it, man. And as ridiculous as it is to say, you'd be surprised the amount of people who will just overly praise a film because everyone else is, or overly dog on a film because everyone else is. So have your own opinion and stand by it. But that's all I got to say for this episode. Thank you guys for listening, and until next time.